Hello, everybody, and welcome to From the Mezzanine, the Broadway podcast for the Broadway fans. That is me and you. I am your host, Lindsey Stone. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I have a very fun episode prepared for all of you today because I saw 3 new shows. I saw The Last 5 Years starring Nick Jonas in his first week of previews on Broadway. Death Becomes Her, which has been a long time coming. And last but not least, Operation Mincemeat, which has been a highly anticipated show of the season. It did so well over on the West End, won multiple Olivier Awards, and I finally had the opportunity to see it with my own 2 eyes. So I'm going to break down each of these shows with you guys on From the Mezzanine today. And then in Broadway news, it's been like an interesting week. We've had so many arrivals, so many openings. And so I thought, what a better time to place my way too early Tony predictions. But there's a catch. It is only for the shows that have already opened on Broadway. I'm not doing any predictions for Floyd Collins or Just in Time, these shows that are coming very soon but have not arrived yet. I'm not placing predictions for those shows. It is strictly the shows that are already opened on Broadway. And I thought that would be fun so we can go ahead and get a pulse. And I basically just want to stake my claim on what I think is going to win, who I think is going to win for each category this early on. And it'll be so fun to circle back when Tony nominations actually come out in May, the first week of May. I cannot wait. And it'll be so fun to circle back and see what comes true. And if I do think that I'm right with a lot of these. Like, I don't even say if I'm right, like, knock on wood, I'm really hoping my Tony predictions in this episode are accurate and true because I will be surprised if something better comes along. But I will hold space for that. I will. But before we get to all of that, let's recap these shows. I'm going to start with Death Becomes Her because this has been out on Broadway for a very long time. I believe it opened back, I want to say in like October or so. No, that doesn't sound right. Maybe like December. It's been here for a few months. Many of my listeners and friends have seen it, and it has been a constant, Lindsey needs to go see this show. You're missing out. You got to see it. And now I can surely see why. It is such a masterpiece. I adored Megan Hilty and Jennifer Simard in their respective roles. As Madeline Ashton and Helen, I thought they were so supremely hilarious. It was refreshing to see a women-led show that is a comedy. I loved that so much. It made me wish so deeply that I would have seen Megan Hilty as Glinda on Broadway, but it also made me, as a fan of her in Smash, very proud that this is the role that she's doing on Broadway right now because it's very similar in ways to the Ivy Lynn character that she played in Smash. I thought, what a genius casting this was for her. And Jennifer Simard, this was my first experience with her. I know she is a Broadway legend, but I have never, ever seen her perform on a stage. And now I will follow her to the end of her career. I loved her. She's a comedic genius. At times, I felt like her character even outshined Megan Hilty, which is crazy to say. But as a whole, this show, I'll give you all like a glimpse at the plot, but it's very simple. It's basically these 2 aging women who are friends / arch enemies. They are competing against one another in so many ways, and they both take this potion that is age defying, and basically they're dead but look amazing. And anyways, it's a wild roller coaster from that point out, and their bodies, no matter what they put them through, will not die. And it's hilarious. Michelle Williams plays the temptress and the owner of this potion and the creator. And she was really good in the role as well. I will say I wasn't quite taken by her performance and her vocal quality. She was very good and very strong. However, I do feel like a Broadway trained actor in her role would have potentially been better, but she's a great stunt cast for this show. She makes a lot of sense with the demographic that will want to come and see this show. She is a genius pick for the role that she's in, and for that reason, literally, I'm not discrediting Death Becomes Her for 1 second, but I'm not necessarily like a Destiny's Child fan. I know a lot of their songs, but I wouldn't go and see a show specifically for Michelle Williams when so many people would. And it's also people who have probably seen the Death Becomes Her movie, which, by the way, I watched it last night. Amazing movie. So camp, so good. I love Meryl Streep in it. And Goldie Hawn. But I will say, I do think the musical is better. I think, of course, it's more topical and it has a lot of recent references and it feels really new and fresh, not like it's based off of this movie that came out in 1992. But I do feel like some of the liberties that the musical took really made the story a lot stronger. I loved the songs in Death Becomes Her. Overall, amazing show. I cannot wait to go back. And that is the mark of a good show. Our seats were relatively poor. They weren't terrible, but we were in like the middle rear mezzanine of the Lumpfontaine Theater. My friend Josh rushed it for us. Shout out Josh, friend of the pod. And I believe he went to the box office around lunchtime. So it was far past the rush line had cycled through. And we got those tickets. So they still had rush tickets at that point. It was a Tuesday. Yeah, it was last Tuesday. So random day, and we were able to get rush tickets after 10 o'clock, which is awesome. But in the future, I will wait in the rush line earlier to get better seats. Hopefully they have better options if you're earlier in the rush line, because your girls got to see this again. It was so funny. And I need to be able to see Madeline Ashton, Megan Hilty up close and see all of the comedic genius that is just emanating from her. She's so fabulous. I loved how camp it was. And when I say camp, I feel like camp is one of those words that has somehow lost its meaning over the years. And sometimes it can just mean hard to understand or without reason. And I think this is a perfect example of good camp on Broadway. It's so different and unique. And the way that they approach certain things is just like unlike anything you've seen. For example, they have stunt people to do all of the crazy stunts. If you've seen the movie, you know that there are wild moments that defy the laws of what somebody can do, especially on a stage in front of an audience, such as being shot with a rifle. How do they do that? Such as being pushed down the stairs. They bring on a stunt double to do it. And it's wild and it's acrobatic and it's really mesmerizing and shocking and hilarious and cool. I've never seen that done on a Broadway stage before, having stunt doubles to like switch out with you and then do like the crazy whatever. It was so fun. But yeah, so this was a major win. I would give it a 9 out of 10. The reason I'm docking it 1 point has to just be because I was a little disappointed in the choreography. I feel like there was an opportunity to have really gone Moulin Rouge style with this choreography that is its own character in the musical, right? And they have these beautiful creatures who have taken the potion and they're so sultry and they're in these, like the costumes were so stunning. That was a huge high point for this musical. But I would have liked to see the choreography amped up quite a bit, and I think that there was room for it. And at times it just felt like the characters were moving around on the stage when it could have been a big dance number. Let me know if you feel that way too, if you've seen it. I feel like that's kind of like a crazy take because there's so many other awesome elements of this show. Like the set is really, really good. The acting, of course, is fantastic. There's puppetry elements to it as well. There's so many fun musical theater elements to Death Becomes Her. But yeah, that's the one thing that I could criticize it for is I would have loved to see more incredible dancing. And I feel like it was lacking in that department, unfortunately. We will definitely be circling back once we get to my early Tony noms later in this episode, more on Megan Hilty and Jennifer Simard. And the guy who plays their husband, Christopher Sieber, was also amazing in the show. So we'll circle back in a bit. Next up, let's talk about Operation Mincemeat. Now, I feel like I'm going to really surprise some people. And I, to my own surprise, did not love this show. And I feel like that's wild. I haven't heard of anybody who didn't enjoy it. It can be given so much credit for the amount of work those actors are putting in on that stage. They are playing, I'd say like 10 characters each at least. This show moves at a mile a minute. It is so fast paced. And the acting is fabulous. What I really didn't like is, for me, it was too fast paced to the point that it was exhausting as an audience member. And I don't like saying this because I thought this was going to be like the next Peter Pan Goes Wrong, the next Gutenberg. I thought this was going to be the next favorite comedy of mine. And I'm really sad that it wasn't. I went in there with the biggest expectations, but also just like ready to have a good time. And I left just feeling like, oh, I'm tired from watching what those actors just did on stage. And I feel horrible to say that because they are really doing the most and working so hard. But that's how I felt as an audience member. I do think that there are people out there who would be interested in this show. History buffs, perhaps, because it is a true story about the British intelligence and this plot that they organized against Hitler's forces. And it's really absurd. And they amp up the absurdity of it, where they are taking a dead body and basically creating this whole narrative that this person is a pilot and he crashes on this island, and it's supposed to get Hitler's forces to go to that island rather than where they already were so that they can like form an attack. That is like what is actually happening, but there are 1,000 plot points surrounding that and 100 characters as well. And there's just so much going on. And I feel like that really was to its detriment. I did not love like the tone of the songs, the cadence, the genre. It wasn't to my taste. It wasn't songs that I could really hold on to, or even songs that I was laughing through. All in all, this just was not for me. And I thought going into it that I was going to be blown away. And so I'm really disappointed to report that. But I will say, I'm literally the only person I feel like who thinks this. Everything that I have seen online, people are loving it. So go for yourself, form your own opinion. If you're interested in Operation Mincemeat, say you knew about the historical story or you've seen the movie, I think that's who this is for. I was really surprised in that audience. A lot of people were really laughing, really engaged. Meanwhile, I just wasn't connected to it. And I think that's a me thing. So I do think you should still give this show a chance, even though it wasn't for me. And I wish I was reporting something differently to you guys, because I hate doing that, especially for a show that was so successful at the West End. And it keeps getting extended and extended over here on Broadway. But something about it just did not connect for me. And sometimes that just happens and it's unexplainable. Maybe I would go a second time and really enjoy it and like understand it. But this go round, it just didn't happen for me. Next up, I can't even believe I'm holding this playbill in my hands. It is The Last 5 Years. This was one of my most anticipated shows of the season. So you can imagine my excitement going into this. I have never seen a Jonas Brothers concert. I, of course, grew up in the era of Jonas Brothers on Disney Channel. So big fan. Love them. I was very hyped to see Nick Jonas. I have not been paying any mind to all of the negativity and backlash that he has been receiving online from theater fans, just saying like he's not the right casting. I can see why people would say that, given that the character of Jamie, who he plays in The Last 5 Years, is a Jewish man, and it is a big plot point of the show that he is Jewish. He has multiple songs where it is mentioned. It's not just like an underlying fact. No, it's addressed multiple times. For that reason, I can definitely see and would have wished that they would have cast a Jewish person in this role. That is the only criticism going into this that I had agreed with. But a lot of people were saying like, oh, he sounds so poppy. He doesn't sound good. I'm like, people do not sound the same when it's recorded on a phone versus when you're sitting in the theater in that moment, feeling the emotions. People's voices sound much, much better given the context. And musical theater songs, you really just can't, like, people were recording and like posting bootlegs on TikTok, what have you. And it's like that is usually not going to sound very good. I'm just going to be honest. But when you're sitting there, you don't feel or think those things. You're like, no, they sound good. Like, you're in the moment with them. You're feeling what they're giving off. You're aware of the circumstances of the song. It's just so different. So I don't think that backlash is warranted whatsoever. Anyways, back to my thoughts on the show. Last 5 years is a show that I have loved for over a decade. It is one of my favorite movies. It was my favorite movie for so long until like Tick, Tick, Boom came out and then Now Wicked came out. But it used to be my number one favorite movie musical ever. So I have a lot of love for this show. I know every single word of this show. I love it dearly. So I, of course, had high expectations, but I also have never seen a stage production, so I really didn't know what to expect and how it was going to differ. And it did differ pretty drastically. The show is only a 2-person show, Adrienne Warren and Nick Jonas. That is it. Whereas in the movie, there are side characters, there are like extras, there's a lot of other people, and it's not just like a 2-person movie, which what movie would be. It makes sense that they added those elements to the movie. Seeing the show, it made me realize what a great movie the last 5 years truly is, because all of the liberties that they took in the movie, I feel like just helped it out so much and made it such a better piece of material. But it was really interesting to see it on a stage, how it was meant to be performed, with a very minimalistic set with only the 2 characters. And the songs were quite different too. Jamie Is Over, the opening song sung by Kathy, Adrienne Warren's character, she is the only one on the stage. Whereas in the movie, there are cuts to Jeremy Jordan, and it's sometimes like more of a collaborative duet. He doesn't sing, but he is like in the scenes in the movie, whereas this is just her. And then the next song is Sheik's a Goddess, and that is sung by Nick Jonas. And in the movie, Jeremy Jordan and Anna Kendrick are like rolling around in bed, and they're like talking to each other, and you can just see their chemistry. It's electric. Whereas in the musical, it is just Nick Jonas on the stage. So there's like no bed, like no scenes like that. So I say all of that so that you get an understanding of where the movie and the musical differ. And there's a lot more solo songs, one person on stage, and a lot of focus on that one character in that one moment, which is very interesting. So I didn't mind that factor of the musical at all. I thought it worked well. I think the overall production of the last 5 years was great. As a fan of the last 5 years, it made me really happy and pleased and satisfied. I did not all feel like it was not ready to come to Broadway or anything like that. Bryn did mention, because I saw it with her, she was like, I think that this potentially would have been better off Broadway at a smaller theater, and with like 2 big Broadway stars. And I do agree with that fully. But as a fan of the last 5 years, I love the fact that it has finally come to Broadway after 23 years, after over 2 decades. It's found a home on Broadway. Now let's talk about the performances, starting with Adrienne Warren, because I'm a positive queen. I want to stay positive. Adrienne Warren was fabulous. She played Kathy really, really nicely. She knew how to lean into the comedic moments. Of course, her vocal quality is just insane. She is so talented, so beautiful, and a magnificent actor. I was surprised because I thought when she did Tina Turner, which she won the Best Actress in a Leading Role Tony for, I thought that she was doing more of like an impression of Tina Turner in her voice, big wheels keep on turning. And she really still sounded similarly to how she did in Tina in the last 5 years. Kind of like how Brody Grant for Pony Boy, he puts on like a country accent. He doesn't usually sing like that, I thought she did something like that with Tina, and I'm sure she did to a degree, but she still has that same Tina Turner vocal tone, which was surprising, but not a bad thing by any stretch. Just interesting to note. So yeah, I think she was fabulous. Really, really good in the role. Like I said, it's super minimalistic. We'll talk about it once we get to Tony noms, but I don't feel like this role is Tony nomination quality. And I feel like it potentially is due to Nick Jonas in the show. So let's talk about Nick Jonas. First, the good parts. His Shmuel song, which is my least favorite song in the movie, was his best song in the show. And that's the song where it's like Christmas and he's like, la, 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 you get to be happy. That was Nick's best song. It was in his register. He had a lot of fun with it. Where to begin? I want to watch myself, okay? I'm not trying to be too down on Nick Jonas, but this is not his first time on Broadway. And I think it felt like it was. Starring opposite Adrienne Warren, who, like I said, is a Tony-winning actor, it really makes you realize that Nick Jonas's talents on a Broadway stage are not equivalent to his counterparts. He wasn't bad. Like, I won't sit here and say that he was bad in the role, but he dropped a lot of lines. And granted, it was the first week of previews, but I felt like he dropped some lines because it was out of his register and it was too high. He definitely does not have the same capabilities of Jeremy Jordan, and that is glaringly obvious, especially when you continuously opt down like he did. There were many moments where I would be so into the show and just like on the edge of my seat and like hanging on to every single lyric. And then he would just like for example, when they're like, move into, out of control. Like, he did not do that. Like, he would not opt up. He would go out of control or something, like go down. And as a fan, it was just like, no, like, take us to the end. Like, take us all the way to the finish line. And I felt like he low-key never did. And that was so supremely disappointing. And like in the moments where like one of the last songs where he's so mad and he's like, I will not lose because you can't win. And it's supposed to be this really aggressive moment where Jamie is at the end of his rope and he is mad at Kathy. Not warranted, by the way, but he didn't take us there. He didn't commit to the bit. And that was really disappointing. Really disappointing. It felt like, and this is definitely not how you should go into a show, but sometimes when there is a stunt cast, you don't want to expect the world of them. And it felt like that with Nick Jonas. It felt like, don't expect the world from him. Expect him to be as you perceive Nick Jonas's vocal capabilities to be, which are super poppy. And he's got just such an interesting voice with very like, I'm going to do an impression. I'm hot. You're good. Like, it's very like, you know, like clenched almost. I don't know really how to explain it. I'm not a vocalist. And for some songs, his pop sound lended itself well, like Moving Too Fast at some moments. But at the end of the day, like, this is what I was saying with my friend, like, singing the lyrics is not optional. Like, you have to actually like sing the lyrics in the song. And sometimes he just like dropped out, like faded into the back, just so quietly was singing and letting Adrienne Warren, just letting her vocals lay on top of his and smush them into the ground. So that was really negative. I'm sorry, you guys, but I will be back to the last 5 years. Like, all's that to say, I do think the production was really good. As a fan of it, I was content. I want to go back and see the understudy because I want to see it performed like I want to see it to the best of its abilities. And so I do want to go back and see him. But overall, I think it was fine. I don't think it's going to be highly nominated at the Tony Awards. But it was my highly anticipated show. And I also just want to say, if they release a cast recording, I probably won't be listening. The original is better, period. Okay, so that's that. We got through it. 3 shows reviewed. Let's get into our Broadway grosses. To kick it off, this is for the week ending on March 16th. Our number one, we all know it by now. It has got to be Othello. Those prices are crazy. And you guys, I'm seeing the show. I am. Like I said earlier, you can get like tickets that are like $175 if you get them closer to curtain. I'm there. I'm seeing it. I'm making up my mind right now on the pod. Wicked is number 2. Good Night and Good Luck is number 3. We have a newcomer, and they only had 5 performances last week. Oh my God. And they grossed well over $2 million. That's insane. Their average ticket price is $303 in the Winter Garden Theater, which is ginormous. Wow. Othello's average ticket price is $338. So they are neck and neck. That's interesting, right? But the Ethel Barrymore is, I think, it's smaller than Winter Garden for sure. Hamilton is number 4. Lion King is 5. Glengarry and Glen Ross is number 6. All of these men, celebrities on Broadway, are totally shaking up the grosses. So Glengarry, Glen Ross is just under $2 million. And their average ticket price is $207 for the week. The Outsiders has fallen to 7. And I don't want to say fallen like a bad way. It's just because these 3 plays are breaking the mold here. Aladdin is 8. The Great Gatsby is 9. That's the highest they've been in quite a while. And MJ the Musical is 10. Cabaret is just right below them at 11. Gypsy is at 12. Gypsy has been shifting a lot. Audra McDonald was out, I think, for 1 performance last week. So that is probably why. Let's look at our bottom of the barrel. What have we got? The lowest grossing musical, I'm only going to say ones that are actually out and not in previews, is Redwood. That is our lowest grossing musical. Oh, wait, other than Chicago. I always overlook it because Chicago is quite literally always the lowest. But yeah, Redwood had 90% capacity, so not bad. They'll continue to stick it out. I want to note maybe Happy Ending did pretty well. They're at over 100% capacity for the week and grossing just under 1 million. So they're doing pretty well. Yay! Interesting week in Broadway grosses. We'll continue to track. It's kind of crazy to think about the fact that there are 3 plays in the top 10. It's a big celebrity moment on Broadway. Okay, let's get into our Tony Awards segment. I'm so excited to place my very, very, very way too early predictions. And let me remind you, it is only for the shows that have already opened on Broadway. We are just pretending that Floyd Collins, Just in Time, Boop, Smash, those shows don't exist in this world. I am only looking at the shows that have already opened, and eventually we'll get to do one for all of the shows. But I just felt like it wasn't fair / I don't want to make predictions for shows that I have not seen, because sometimes I am sorely disappointed and I think something's going to do really well and it doesn't. So that's what we're going with right now, okay? First of all, Best Musical category. I have taken into consideration the Broadway World Review Roundup assigns a percentage based on all of the reviews that a show receives. And I have based my rankings partially off of that percentage, but the winner is my handpicked winner of what I think will win. So in the category of Best Musical, this is all of the shows that will qualify. We have A Wonderful World, Buena Vista Social Club, Death Becomes Her, Maybe Happy Ending, Operation Mincemeat, Redwood, Swept Away, and Tammy Faye. Of course, there are a lot more that are coming, but we're not paying attention to those. So with all of those shows in mind that will be in the category of Best Musical, I think our nominees will be Buena Vista Social Club, because they received an 86% rating in the review roundup, and it was all good reviews. So congratulations to them. We got that news this week. They just opened, and it looks really, really good for them. Death Becomes Her, I also definitely think will be nominated. Maybe Happy Ending will be nominated, of course. And based on their reviews, I do think that Operation Mincemeat will be nominated for Best Musical, because they got a 77.8% on the review roundup. My winner for Best Musical at the Tony Awards 2025 is, drumroll please, Maybe Happy Ending. Ah! Obviously. Like, of course, that's going to be our winner for Best Musical. I think, honestly, I really do believe that everybody agrees with this. Everybody who's seen it, everybody who has an idea of what is coming. Let's just briefly mention, I do think its biggest competitor will likely be Dead Outlaw. I have really high hopes for that show. But as far as what's already been released, nothing can hold a candle to Maybe Happy Ending, period. Our next category is low-key not stacked at all. I'm kind of shocked by how little shows qualify in this category. It is Best Revival of a Musical. So we have Elf the Musical, Gypsy, Sunset Boulevard, and Once Upon a Mattress. We also have Pirates of Penzance coming, but we're disregarding that for now. My winner for Best Revival of a Musical is Gypsy. There's actually none that qualify or hold a candle to it. Like I said, for Maybe Happy Ending, these are my two outstanders for the season so far. And you'll continue to see that in my nominations below. Next, Best Play. In this category so far, we have All In, a Comedy About Love. Interesting to note, their review roundup percentage was 53%. Cult of Love did much better. They had 78% in their reviews. English had 84%. Good Night and Good Luck, of course, is coming, but we're disregarding it. Job, Left on 10th, McNeil, O'Mary, Purpose, Hills of California, The Roommate, and all of the ones that have not opened yet. There's quite a few. So many plays this year. But there is one outstander that their percentage is so much higher than everybody else's, a full 10% higher than the one that follows it. And that is O'Mary. I think O'Mary will win Best Play. I do. It has been extended and extended, and it's got so many cool castings, and everybody is loving it, and it got insanely positive reviews, all thumbs up, all good reviews. Just raving about it. And it's ending on a high. It's ending right after Tony's. So this is going to be our winner for Best Play. Mark my words right now. Best Revival of a Play. Now, this category is a little tricky for me in particular because I have not seen many of these shows. But we will have Eureka Day. Glengarry Glen Ross will be in this, but we're disregarding. Home. Othello as well, Our Town, Romeo and Juliet, and Yellowface. Now, honestly, in my opinion, this is a toss-up. I don't know what it will go to, but what I do know is Eureka Day received really, really good reviews, the best reviews out of any other play in this category. And I also heard from word of mouth, people were loving this show. So for those reasons, I do think that potentially it will win, but I know we aren't supposed to do this. But I kind of think that Glengarry Glen Ross has a good chance of winning as well. Othello, on the other hand, I've already heard whispers. I don't think it's going to be very good. Now, the categories that we all truly care about, the acting categories. For Best Actress in a Musical, without a doubt, I do think it is going to Audra McDonald. Our contenders, though, would be Nicole Scherzinger. Helen J. Shin, I think, is worthy of a nomination. Megan Hilty, Jennifer Samard. I really do believe that they'll both be nominated. And then possibly in the maybe category, potentially maybe if the Tony nominee committee is being a little generous, I think Idina Menzel could be nominated and Adrienne Warren, although I won't be surprised if they are disregarded from this category. But my winner, without a doubt, got to be Audra. Her performance transcends. It is likely the best performance I have ever seen on Broadway. She's insane. She's insane. She is so captivating. And I can without a doubt see why she is the most decorated Tony Award winner out there. She's everything. Now, in my featured actress category, the only ones so far that I could put in the nominations are Joy Woods, Jordan Tyson, and Natasha Hodgson. She plays Ewan Montague, who is in Operation Mincemeat. I feel like she's worthy of a nomination. But that's only 3 people. There's room in this category. I don't know who else to put in it, but I do know who I want to win. And I think Jordan Tyson should win featured actress. I really do. I think her, even though she is not in Act 2 of Gypsy whatsoever, I think her first act is so strong that she could win. And I feel like that's crazy, but I do think she is the outstander between her and Joy Woods, which I hate to pit them against each other. They are both so amazing. Joy is amazing, but I don't know. I like Jordan Tyson's performance a little bit better. And I can't even say why. I just think she's more emotive, and the role that she's playing is quite difficult. She's supposed to be acting like a 9-year-old. And of course, Joy Woods does that as well. But when she's younger, she kind of fades into the background a little bit, and then boom, she's like a full woman on that stage. Sorry, that like sounded kind of weird, but I don't know, something about the character development that Jordan Tyson has in her pretty short amount of time that she's on stage, it really hits me and I love it. It's captivating. She's wonderful. So I do think Jordan Tyson is worthy of winning Best Featured Actress at the Tonys. Now, Best Actor. My nominees are Darren Criss, Tom Francis, and, might be a surprise, James Monroe Iglehart. I do feel like he's worthy of a nomination based on his performance in A Wonderful World, though I don't think it's going to be nominated for likely anything else. And I don't think Nick Jonas is going to be nominated. I cannot see a world in which that's going to happen. But of course, I think Darren Criss will win. I think without a doubt, this category is going to get a lot more stacked with Jeremy Jordan and Jonathan Groff and Austin Durand, is that his name? Durand, who was in Shucked, who's going to be in Death Outlaw. I think as time goes on, this category is going to get tougher and tougher, but as it stands right now, Darren Criss is without a doubt the front runner. Featured Actor. I love this category. I don't even want to say my nominations because there's one outstander that I definitely think is going to win, and I'll be surprised if anybody's performance is better that's coming down the pipeline, but I do think Danny Bernstein in Gypsy is so worthy of winning in this category. He holds onto your heart in the show, and he is just so authentically his character as Herbie. I definitely think Danny Bernstein is more than worthy of Featured Actor in a musical. Okay, now I don't want to go through all the nominees, but more in the technical categories, I do have my picks. So for set design, gotta be Maybe Happy Ending. That set is so different and unique, and so many shows are relying on screens right now, and I love that Maybe Happy Ending is actually relying on screens as well in the way that it's arranging the rooms and taking you from location to location, but it is in such a unique way that it needs to win. In costume design, I hope that goes to Death Becomes Her. Paul Tazewell, friend of the pod. They were just beautiful costumes, some of the best that I've seen in a really, really long time. And the actors could literally have just stood in the costumes, said their lines with a straight face, and the costumes still would have told you who they are, and they speak for themselves. And I think that's what a really good costume should do. Best Original Score, gotta go to Maybe Happy Ending. It is so beautiful, takes you on a journey, and I just think Maybe Happy Ending is low-key gonna sweep. I think Gypsy's gonna sweep in their categories, and Maybe Happy Ending is gonna sweep in theirs. And I'm proud to say it, and I really don't think that opinion is gonna change from now to Tony season. But who knows? We have so many exciting shows coming. Floyd Collins is my most anticipated now that Last 5 Years has opened, and I cannot wait. I don't think I mentioned, but I am seeing Boop soon, as well as Real Women Have Curves. And so maybe those will become my new Tony nominations. But for now, this is how it stands, and I feel good about it. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of From the Mezzanine. If you enjoyed this episode, please, please, please leave me a rate and review on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're listening. It does such amazing things for the podcast. And low-key, it's been a minute since I received a really nice review, so it would be really nice if you haven't done so to leave me a review, and it'll put a smile on my face, and I appreciate you so much for it. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, comment down below what your Tony nominations are. I need to know, you guys. And let me know what you thought of these shows as well. Operation Mincemeat, Last 5 Years, Death Becomes Her. What was your review? What did you think? What would you rate it out of 10? Tell me. I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and share this episode with your Broadway bestie because I am sure they are going to enjoy it just as much as you. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at From the Mezzanine Broadway, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!